What's happening, baby? Middle of the summer, hot out, top down, AC cranking in the Z4 Handschalter, Handschalter, stick shift. Z4 stick shift. That's what it is about. I can't believe the Z4 has been out for 2 years and I haven't driven it. But then when I heard they were announcing the stick shift, I was like, oh, that's the one I'll wait for. And here it is in an unbelievable shade of San Remo green with a tan interior, or tan seats anyway. Love it. Looks fantastic. And in this video, we're going to answer a couple of very important questions. Who is the Z4 for, right? How does it compare to the Boxster, the obvious competition? It's actually the base Boxster, if we're talking about money, is the closest competition. And also, how does it compare versus its platform mate, the Toyota Supra? Most importantly, the Roadster platform, stick shifts, fewer and farther between. So we want each new opportunity to buy cars like this because there aren't becoming a lot more of them. And so do we love it? Those are the important questions we're going to answer in today's video. Boilerplate items. This is the M40i. This is the most powerful version of the Z4. You can get the little 255 horsepower four-cylinder that I think they just discontinued from the Supra range, or you can get this B58, 382 horsepower, 369 pound-feet of torque. The Z4, the automatic one, weighs 36 pounds, and although BMW didn't give me a curb weight for this, in the Supra, it's about 30 pounds less, so let's call it 3,600 even for the manual equipped Z4. A little bit heavy, but it's about 300 pounds heavier than a Boxster. It's about 300 pounds heavier than a manual transmission Supra, but it's about 200 pounds less than a Mustang GT, about 200 pounds less than the BMW M240i. So somewhere in the middle there. BMW says it'll do 0 to 60 in 4.2 seconds. I don't have any reason to doubt that number. And as you'll see, it feels quick. Quarter mile, low 12s at 116. The reason I say low 12s is because I could only get a quarter mile for the automatic one, which was a 12.0. Guess 2-3 tenths behind for the shifting, but probably a similar trap speed. 13.5-inch brakes front and rear. The Handschalter, I'm not ever going to get that right. The manual gear shift also, even though it's a $3,500 option, comes with a retuned adaptive shocks, stiffer front and rear sway bars, reprogrammed electronic steering, and also the better wheels and Michelin Pilot Super Sport tires. I actually thought that the Pilot Super Sport had been discontinued and it was just the PS4S, but as it turns out, still exists, still in the game. So let's go for a drive and answer those all-important questions. Guys, today's video would not be possible without one of my favorite sponsors and yours. Movaglobe is back. These incredible globes spin on their own. There's hidden magnets inside, and they're powered entirely by light. There's no batteries. There's no cords. It's an unbelievably clean design that will impress everybody who sees them. And I should know, these things sit right outside the studio, and everyone who comes by asks me how they spin. Well, they're powered by light. And not just sunlight either. They could be powered by indoor light in your home or your office. There are so many different designs. These are my favorites. They look like real planets, and they're done from satellite photos from NASA and JPL. You've got planets, you've got moons, you've got Earth, but there's also more artistic ones, traditional designed globes. There's sports-themed ones, and all different designs over at their website. You can check them all all out at movaglobes.com. Hit the link in our video description and use code SMOKINGTIRE for 10% off all 6 and 8.5 inch Mova globes. Get one for yourself, your boss, your mom, your dad, your kids, your brother, your friends. Doesn't matter who. Everybody loves a Mova globe. So hit that link in the video description and use code SMOKINGTIRE. And thank you to Mova Globe for sponsoring today's video. Woo! Regardless of what the numbers say, folks, in the Matt Farah binary, is it fast? Check yes, check no. The answer is yes. Just like the manual transmission Supra, it does feel fast. And if you factor out the time it takes to change gears manually, and you only really focus on in-gear acceleration, which for a lot of people, myself included, is really how I judge if a car is fast, because I'm not power shifting all the time. Man, does this thing rip. Peak torque, 1,800 RPM. Peak power, 6,500 RPM. And that means a very wide 4,700 RPM power band to work with. That means flexibility, usability. It means on the highway, you don't have to downshift out of 6th or 5th gear very often. It means up here on the mountain, if you want, you can change gear very frequently, or you can just kind of stick it in 3rd and have plenty of power. You know, people complain about the long gearing of the Boxsters, and rightfully so, particularly in the 6-cylinder GTS and Spider variants, but in the turbocharged cars, where you have a wider torque band, the S and old GTS Turbo, the long gearing did make more sense. With the turbo motors, and you've got that big, wide torque band, the long gearing is okay. BMW didn't give me the numbers, but as far as I can tell, the ratios in this are the same as the Supra. There is a bit of a difference in tuning and composure. The comfort mode in this car is a little softer than the comfort mode in the Supra, and the car feels a little less manic. I mean, it's almost as quick. It's quick enough that on the road, if you're not measuring with a stopwatch, basically as quick, but it's a little less crazy. It's a little less wheel spinny. It feels like the traction control, it doesn't get in the way, but it sort of stops you before things get mega hairy. Sound is fantastic. I mean, unquestionably, classic modern BMW, smooth, in this Sport Plus mode, a little more burble tune than I would like. I might give Mr. Mitch McKee at M Engineering a call and see if he can get rid of that burble tune, but ultimately a very pleasant sound, a very smooth sound. At half throttle, it's a very refined experience. Feels like a nice GT package. But when you get to the bottom of that pedal, then it really starts to deliver, starts to feel a little more rowdy and plenty sporty. Of course, with the M40, you get that M Sport differential, which is good, LSD. It also has brake vectoring going on. And there's a bunch of driver assistance stuff, all of which I've disabled. You do have rev matching on there if you want it. I've also turned that off. Pretty sure the shifter is the same as the Supra, which means it's tied for best modern BMW shifter. The shifts are very direct, the throws are the right length. Let's see how it does in the tunnel. We're going to slow down here and we're going to go from 2nd. so we can really get it without too much wind noise. So here's second gear from 3. Very pleasant. Very pleasant, properly quick. It is very spacious in here. It's comfortable. I really have enjoyed daily driving this car and just using it as a car. The clutch is light but has very good feel. The steering, it ain't Porsche, but it ain't bad. If you're a real, nerd about your steering feel, then maybe it's not the best. But it is sharp, right? It's sharp, it's direct, as is the chassis. The chassis is sharp or direct. We're in Sport Plus right now. I'm going to go into my Sport Individual mode, which is basically Sport Plus, but with the shocks in Comfort. Comfort, a lot more body motion here. I'd probably drive, in my car, in my Spider, I have the shocks in Comfort all the time. In this car, I'd probably drive canyons with the shocks in Sport. It's not too abusive, and it's definitely not a mid-engine Boxster, right? It's the Boxsters. Here, wait, we'll go. The Boxster is such a high bar, such a high bar, that it's almost like impossible that BMW or anyone else with a front-rear configuration could make a car that has as much balance, composure, and poise with the level of comfort that you get from a Boxster. It'd be very hard. And so this isn't that. But it's definitely objectively quicker. The acceleration is absolutely quicker. It's got a nice trunk. The sound is certainly better. This thing sounds great. I wouldn't mess with it at all, other than if I could get rid of that burble tune. I would say the BMW's shifter is better than the base Boxster's shifter. Maybe not better than GT4 or Spider, but better than base. And it'll dance. This is a car that you can and should use as a daily. This would make a great daily in the warm weather climates. The top goes up and down in about 14 seconds. You can do it with the remote fob, so you can get out of the car and use the fact of the top off to make it easy to get in and out of the car, and then hold that lock or unlock button, goes up and down on the fob. That's great. I gotta tell you, third, fourth gear in this thing, wow, big speeds. It is not slow. And by the way, have I mentioned that it's like great looking? Like, I'm not saying it's the best looking car of all time, but have you seen what BMW is doing in 2024? Compared to that, this is a Z8. I mean, this is a great looking car. I think it's got good proportions, it's got good lines, good angles. It doesn't have BMW's ugly, big, vertical beaver tooth grille. And there's buttons for stuff, not for everything. You definitely have your iDrive controller and a touchscreen for secondary things, but there's a scrolling volume knob, there's a scrolling wheel, there's hard buttons for your drive modes and for the roof, for the parking brake, things like that. Crucially, and I'm sorry that we are stuck behind a Tesla for the moment, but crucially, the manual gearbox feels very well mated to the car. And I've heard pretty good things about the automatic, but in the Supra, the manual makes it much more exciting, much more like I would want the successor to the Mark IV Supra to feel. I think it matters a little less in the Z4. That's not a crucial piece of the puzzle, but it's such a nice thing. It's such a nice thing. Now this car is $74,000 as it sits. It's got some options on it, and I actually agree with the press fleet's choices here. I'd have mine just like this. Now 74 grand, that's a lot of money, right? If you want to go faster for that kind of money, you can. That's about the same price as our Mustang Dark Horse that we tested. That's faster. But it's also bigger, bulkier, in my opinion, not as good looking, and maybe not as well built. Or you can go base Boxster. Not as fast, just as fun, top-down motoring, just as practical, just as spacious. Doesn't sound as good, but that's not a bad option either. So this sort of sits in the middle than that. Or you can go Supra. Right? If you don't care about it being a convertible or don't want a convertible, the manual transmission Supra is $59,000. It's about 15 grand cheaper than this. Maybe you get some options, maybe you get some mods, and you're 10 grand cheaper than this. So you can get this same kind of front engine, rear drive, manual gearbox performance from the Supra. Then, of course, there is your C8 Corvette, which you can now get in the 70s. That's an interesting proposition. Just as practical, just as comfortable, faster than this. The V8 sounds great. No manual gearbox, but the roof comes off, and that's pretty enticing as well. So you've actually got a couple of decent choices. There's no bad answers in that grouping. There's no bad cars. Those are 4 or 5 great cars. But choosing a car like this, it's not going to be an objective thing. You got to love it. And although I've not given much thought to the Z range in a while, there hasn't been an M in like 10 years, or 12 years, and there haven't been one that really, really made me love it in quite a while. This one has changed that. This Z4 is excellent. It's got the handling, it's got the power. I don't know about for track work, but it's got enough brakes for the canyons. The top down is great. Although there is a little more wind noise than my Boxster, that does need to be said. Air conditioning cranks. There are only a couple of problems, and they are small. One is you have to deactivate the intelligent sensing and the lane keep assist every time you start the car, which means holding down that button for 3 seconds. Annoying, but not a deal breaker. The other is the cup holders, and how American for me to complain about cup holders, but they're in the armrest. And so while you can close the driver's side of the armrest and still have a cup holder, the passenger side still has to be up all the time while you've got anything in there. That's sort of poor design, and also not a deal breaker, but to be honest with you, I drive with beverages a lot, and so that is mildly annoying. Everything else about this car is pretty ace. So let's go back to where we started. Who's this for versus a Boxster or a Corvette or a Supra? Obviously, somewhere with a warm climate where you can take advantage of the top being down. It's fine with the top up. It's not too loud, but I wouldn't get a convertible unless you really wanted to drive with the top down. Someone who wants more speed than the Boxster, someone who wants more of a GT experience than the Boxster, and somebody who would rather buy the loaded up version, the fastest high performance version of one car than the most basic version of another car. That's who it's for versus a Boxster. Should you get it versus the Supra? Honestly, if money's not a thing, I like this better than the Supra. The Supra feels a little more cramped to me. Even with the top up, this car feels a little more spacious. I prefer the aesthetics of this car. I do like using the BMW infotainment a little better than I like Toyota's. I like the gauge cluster a little better. So if money isn't real, I would rather have this than the Supra, but they are very similar driving experiences. Lastly, do we love it? Yes, we do. This is probably my favorite BMW on sale today right now. The M2 is faster but far uglier, and the extra speed doesn't really do anything for me. Plus, I don't like the new infotainment display at all, and I love here in California that it's a convertible. I like a lot about this car, and even at $75,000, I really feel like it offers a lot of car for the money. So thank you to BMW for letting me have a go for a week. Thanks to you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.
And remember, always fight your tickets on the Off the Record app available in the Android and iOS store, or go to offtherecord.com/TST.